Hi, I'm Denise Griffitts, and this is your partner in Success Radio. And today I'm welcoming back Dr. Melissa Miller-Winemiller to continue a very important conversation about empathy, emotional intelligence, and what healthy leadership really looks like in today's world. Melissa always brings a thoughtful mix of research, real world experience, and practical insight. And today we're digging into why empathy matters far more than many people realize, both professionally and personally. And I'm glad to have her back with us. So, our sponsor today is Joshua Hale. Think of him as a life first rather, tech strategist. He works with small business owners and creators to put AI and automation to work, which we all need these days. Automation is critical. So you can stop trading time for revenue. And Joshua builds pragmatic systems, simplifying your workflow, improving customer reach, and giving you back time to do the work that you love. Did I say I need that? I really do. I'm working on it now. If you want smarter growth and less overwhelm, check out joshuahale.io, and that's Joshua Hale, Hale. Now back to my guest, Dr. Melissa Robinson-Winemiller, and that's the last time I'm going to say the whole name because I just bit my tongue, joins us again today. And if you've heard her before, and you probably did on this podcast, you know that she brings a grounded, thoughtful approach to leadership that really makes you stop and think about how we've been doing things. And with more than 20 years of experience across multiple industries, she works with organizations to build emotionally intelligent cultures that support both the people inside them and the results that they're trying to achieve. And she is also a TEDx speaker, an EQ coach, and the author of one of my favorite books, Empathic Leader. And what I really appreciate about her work is how she brings empathy down to something practical, something that you actually use and should use and not just talk about. So anyway, Melissa, thank you. Welcome back. You were here late last year. I think it was in December. And I'm glad to pick up where we left off.
Oh, Denise, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I just enjoyed our last conversation so much. So I'm just excited to be here and get to talk to you and your cats.
I'm really not a crazy cat lady. Let's just move that off of the table. Really.
You
But
can have cats and not be a crazy cat lady. It's all right.
I don't know. It's a meme. But I am a highly committed introvert. I love cats and I will never marry again. So there you have it. Been there, done it, did my time, I'm done. So we can't. I've always had cats. I've had them since I was old enough to look at my mom and say my first word, which was no. So it's a personality trait, I think. But listen, and you mentioned when you were here last, because I had the book in front of me. I really enjoy this book. I think empathy is so critical, especially now when
Yeah,
people are just, keyboard warriors and just beating the crap out of each other, which makes no sense to me at all.
yeah.
But we couldn't get through so much of what I wanted to talk with you about. So this is why you're back, and thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, that's what I live for is to be able to talk to people about this and say, "Hey, have you considered that this is something that not only we need, but you can use every day? And if you don't think you have it, you can learn it." You know? It is a practical skill. It's not just this woo fluffy puppies and rainbows thing. It's something you can practice and put into effect. So, I'm just so excited to get to talk to you and your audience again, Denise.
Oh, thank you. And I have to tell you, when I was younger and really arrogant, as we all 17-year-olds are sociopaths as far as I'm concerned. And I say that with love. I'm speaking to my 17-year-old self, but honestly, I didn't know what empathy was. I did possess it, but I hadn't identified it. But I was also young, cocky, arrogant, kind of a brat. All right, a lot of a brat. And as I got older, I realized that not only did I have empathy, but I practiced it a lot and didn't know it. Do you
Mm.
find that people do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. I
Actually,
did. I was feeling kind of lonely there.
yeah, not at all. I'm actually finishing up my dissertation research now. And so basically what that has to do is just I'm interviewing a lot of people in leadership positions, specifically in healthcare. But one of the questions I ask them is, do you think that there's an age component to empathy? And I didn't really know what I was gonna get out of that question, I just wanted to hear what they had to say, and by and large, I'd say, like, maybe 70% or so have said that they think people gain empathy as they get older because they gain more experience. They have something to be able to, empathy isn't necessarily about feeling, right? It's about being able to take the perspective of the other person. So the more things you've seen and been through and have done, the more perspective you have to be able to look at that other person and go, "Oh yeah, maybe I wasn't in that exact situation, but I know what grief feels like. I know what fear feels
Right.
like. I know what
Right.
sadness feels like."
That makes sense. I mean, I honestly, because I had somebody, oh, 10, 12 years ago, a good friend of mine, she said, "Denise, do you think you're, empathetic?" I guess I'm saying that right. And I looked at her and I
Mhm.
said, "No." She said, "Well, you're wrong." Oh, okay. And off we went. She's my best friend in the world, and I don't even know why she asked me that, but and she proceeded to list the reasons I was wrong, and I said, "Okay, pull the car over. If I try to write this down, I'll throw up on my feet, so pull the car over, and we'll finish this conversation." And everything she pointed out, I was like, "Oh." I mean, I knew that I had empathy. I just didn't know that other people knew I had it, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it does actually. And I think it's because we display it differently too, I mean, one leader I was working with was like, "Well, yeah, I just don't have empathy." And it's like, "No, no, you have it. You're not warm and fuzzy and feely and huggy and, puppies and rainbows, but you're taking the perspective of your people. You're choosing to lead with kindness instead of niceness." Niceness is a social construct. It's what we do to stay comfortable. Kindness isn't always very nice. And
Yeah, we talked about that the last time you were here.
yeah, so being able to make these distinctions and be like, "Oh yeah, I guess I do have empathy. I just, am not this over the top fluffy kind of person."
Well, you know how I kind of figured it out eventually because, how often do we really take a good look at ourselves, how we present, how we, operate, how we react? And for the longest kind of time, I considered myself to be just staunchly left brain. I have a computer science degree. I'm logical. I'm autodidactic. I do things while I'm thinking about it. And then I realized that I was actually straddling the fence. I go both ways. So I finally figured that out and went, "Oh, I like me much better now." But I was just hell bent that I was an A type personality, that I was logical, you know, do what you're told, nobody gets hurt, that type of personality. That didn't work very well for me. So, but it took a while to just kind of have it come to the surface and say, "Well, you've been this way all along. Why didn't you know it?"
Isn't it funny how we end up a slave to our own perceptions?
Yep.
You know? I was the other way because I was a musician for so many years. And, I was told the usual girls can't do math and you're just a musician, so don't try to think too hard and this kind of thing. And then when I ended up having to leave music, I was like, there's more here. And I call it my revenge degree, which is ridiculous. But I actually went and got a degree in a master's of science in data analytics and statistics because I'm like, you know what? I can do this, and I'm gonna prove it. So, it kinda just gives me the warm fuzzies when I'm like, there was more to me all along than I had any idea about."
That's exactly right, and what you just said about math and musicians, don't they go together?
They they do,
I
actually.
know.
Yeah.
And listen, ask me about math, I hate it. Hate it. When I almost failed algebra, and finally, I think they gave me a pass because I literally stood up because the instructor was saying, "Denise, you're one of the brightest students in here. Why can't" he was so frustrated. "Why can't you understand this?" And I stood up, I did my Wonder Woman pose, hands on my hips. I said, "Because it's a made up bunch of crap that some celibate in a cave with a candle made up because he couldn't get laid," and I got thrown out of the class. Well, I didn't get thrown out. They said, "You need to go somewhere else right now." I said, "Okay." And they let me back in, but I'm pretty sure they passed me just so I wouldn't do that again.
Oh, that's
But
awesome, though.
I
The
don't
things that
understand yeah, I don't
think
understand math. I never have. I can sing, but I can't read music.
but that's okay because, it's we all experience these things differently. I was the opposite. I was horrible in math, but it's because I was told, "Oh, you can't do this."
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
so, but I think that's hilarious because what you did was say what the rest of us are thinking. So,
Oh,
well
good.
done.
I have warned anybody who gets around me. I may be an introvert, but I don't have filters, just so you know. So, don't ask me questions you don't want the answers to. I will answer them. So,
Well, someone's got to, so good
I
on you.
know. I know, but, I've always read that if you understand math, you're probably very musical. And that makes sense to me because you're looking at musical notes, you're seeing patterns. I mean, it just
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
Yeah. It in hindsight now that I'm 52, it makes sense to me. At that time, no, not even a little bit, but you're right because you're dealing with frequencies and you're dealing with harmonies and when you're in an orchestra and you're like trying to tune these notes to everything that's going on around you and there's different, the instruments sound different. There's different timbres, so you're also working with like overtones, which, kind of in a nutshell is how thick the sound is and there's so much more to it, but it always follows certain patterns. These sound frequencies do the same things every single time. So it's really fascinating, and I wish that I had thought I was better at it back then. Because, like, at one point, I tried to take a science of music class and stuff. It's the only class in undergrad I ever dropped, but I was just like, "Oh, man, they want me to do numbers? Nah, I'm gonna go play my French horn and sit in the practice room." And now, in hindsight, I wish I could have told my younger self, "Why don't you stick this out? You might actually enjoy this if you give it half a chance."
And I tell myself that we should all tell ourselves, "Why don't you just give it a try?" Whatever it is, unless it's something that's gonna put you in jail. But, why don't you give it a try? Give it your best shot. If it didn't work this time, pick it up again in a week or a year or a month and try it again. There's no
Right,
such thing as failure as I'm concerned. There's quit, but not really failure.
right, and just because you don't love it today doesn't mean you might not love it tomorrow.
Exactly. So let's go back to empathy. How did empathy become something that people often see as soft or optionable and optional? It's going to be one of those mornings in leadership when it may actually be one of the most important skills a leader can have because these days in particular, we're all being bombarded. I don't turn the TV
Yeah.
on. I actually unplugged mine last night because it started turning itself on. I went, I don't think so. It's like, no,
Oh,
no, no. But I just unplugged the whole darn thing and I'll probably forget that it's off for a month. But if you go to, social media, it's like your stomach just hurts after a while.
yeah,
Why are people so stinking cruel to each other? And I think that's an empathy issue. I do.
yeah.
If you don't
No,
understand somebody's political, if you don't, whatever it is, maybe you need to sit with yourself for a while.
yeah. No, I agree with all of that. I think a lot of one of the reasons or the biggest reason that people in leadership in general, or specifically, I guess, don't really think of empathy as a skill is because there's so many myths out there about it. And I kind of blame, media and writers and the people that have said, "Oh, empathy is about feelings. I feel what you feel." Well, yeah, that's one kind of empathy.
But that's very surface.
Right. And it's only one. I mean, the whole purpose of empathy is to take the perspective of the other person. Feelings are great. Feelings are important, not the only way, you know? And as a leader, I personally don't want someone who's going to be involved in everybody else's feelings and burn themselves out. I need someone who's going to use cognitive empathy, which is I logically understand what you feel. I logically just can see your situation. I can take your perspective, but I'm not getting caught up in the feelings of it. And as a leader, when you're trying to help so many people, you can't. You're going to end up saving the one to the detriment of the many. You can't do that. It just doesn't work. And I think that as leaders, they have this idea that it's all about feelings and therefore it's weak and therefore they shouldn't do it because they have to show strength and they can't be vulnerable and this kind of thing. And that's just it's all myth. We have to get past some of that before we can actually talk about how you can use it as a skill. because part of it is. And as far
And
as oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to
I
interrupt.
was going to say, I was writing down while you were talking, you said, cognitive empathy. But I'm wondering, and this just popped in my head while you were talking, how many leaders are just leader of your home? Could be, you're the veterinarian and you're the leader of your team. You can be anybody. But how many leaders, this is an oddball question, I know, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I think it's just too darn time consuming.
Oh, yes, there's actually research on that.
Ah, tell me.
Yes. So what these people found is that the number one reason why people don't use empathy is because it takes extra work. You have to actually put the work in, number 1, to understand how to use it, but then number 2, to take that other person's perspective, so people tend to gloss over it. And I think that happens in leadership as well, because first, they have to learn it, and then second, they have to apply it, and that takes extra work.
And time. And
And
so
time.
many of us say, I don't have time. I don't have time.
Yep.
Yeah, you do. Turn the TV off. Go walk your dog. You've got time. But
Yes.
I'm wondering because I've been in situations just glancing, just my veterinarian for starters. When I first got to know him, I didn't like him at all. I really didn't because he was very cut and dry. You don't he showed a lot of empathy to the pets, but the people not so much. And I think he finally figured it out. Is now spending a little bit more time with, asking questions with our anxiety. You don't go to a vet if you're not anxious, let's face it, and you've
Yeah.
got things to say. But he did get better. I don't know what happened. It took a lot of years, but the first couple of times I was around him, I went, I don't care how close he is. I don't like him. And I didn't like him because he just in and out, in and out, in and out. Well, that wasn't helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is if he had stopped to think, "Man, Denise is in here, her cat's not doing well, she's really anxious. Yeah, I'm here to take care of the cat, but I also need to take care of Denise enough to say, 'Look, I'm doing the best that I can for your cat. We're gonna do the best that we can to make sure everything is
Right,
okay.
right.
I know you're anxious. The best thing you can do is just let us do our jobs, and we're gonna do everything we can.'" You know?
And
And
my side of that empathy equation is that when I go in there, I'm not rattling a whole bunch of stuff. I've already explained it to the intake person on the phone, and I do my best to just stay quiet because they know they've got the list, they know what's going on. They can ask me questions. I'm holding the cat or holding the dog. I'm staying out of their way because they're professionals.
yeah.
So it does take two. You both have to be empathetic.
Oh, and I think you just hit on a major, major point, because when empathy is actually working like it should, it works in both directions.
Right.
So if you have these leaders and they're giving their people empathy, their people are going to be more likely to give them empathy, because leadership is not easy. If it were, everyone would be doing it.
It's not easy. And,
No.
so many people just burn out. I
Yeah.
mean, and I can see why they burn out. But it is one of the most important skills a leader can have. So what do you tell leaders when you're working with them? Are you walking, through exercises with them or asking them to listen to themselves? How do you help them?
So the way I begin with leaders, I try to break this up into, digestible chunks, because nobody wants to know all of the stuff that goes underneath. That's my job. So where I start is with this idea that you have to be able to take their perspective. What is driving this other person? We all have drivers. We all have things that we're either moving towards, whether it's legacy or financial stability or, just to have a calm day. Or we have things we're running from, whether, imposter syndrome or fear or who knows. So if you can take their perspective, you can figure out these drivers. And once you can figure out these drivers, you can actually lead these people the way they need to be led. So, for example, one of them that I hear all the time is so and so isn't working because they're just lazy. They just don't want to do it. They don't want to get the job done, right? But then I'll ask this later, well, did you actually ask them? Did you talk to them? Not talk at them, talk to them. Well, no, not really. So we go and talk to Bob, and it comes out in the conversation. Bob isn't lazy. Bob is afraid of failing. Bob has had people on top of him every time he's tried to do something. and he doesn't feel he's prepared for the task. And so he's not getting it done because he's scared to death he's gonna get stomped on again. Oh, well, let's give Bob what he needs so that we can get the task done. And the way this works is at the beginning, the outcomes of both of these people were misaligned. The outcome of the leader was for Bob to get the job done. The outcome for Bob was to just stay away because he was scared. Now we took away the fear, so the outcomes are aligned and they can get it done. And it's really that simple as cueing yourself, take their perspective. Take their perspective. And if you
Right.
don't know what their perspective is, ask them.
And sometimes I've noticed it's just that Bob is in the wrong darn job.
Yes.
He didn't wanna be there, he got promoted without asking, or this is just not where his skill set lies. And that's
Yeah.
important to find out too.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you can get Bob in the right place, it's gonna make a huge difference for everybody. Give him a chance to thrive, you never know. And I mean, if this is the kind of thing where it really is a problem where Bob really is lazy, or maybe Bob really does need to go somewhere else, he's not happy there either. So let's give Bob the opportunity to thrive. Either put him in a different position or say, this isn't working out for us and this isn't working out for you. So let's take a day or a morning or an hour. Let's get your resume together and let's get you somewhere where you can thrive and be the best Bob you can be instead of being here and being miserable and making everybody else around you miserable.
Exactly. And I recently learned, and I think it was from you, that there is something like 43 different kinds of empathy. What does
Yeah.
that really mean?
That means that those are all different ways that we can take the other person's perspective. So we hit on, emotional empathy, which is the I feel what you feel. We hit cognitive empathy, which is I logically understand where you're at. I just don't necessarily feel anything. There's self-empathy, where you tend to lose the perspective for yourself and you need to pull that back in. There's somatic empathy, which is where you actually feel physically in your body what another person is feeling. If you think about like ghost labor pains, sometimes fathers will have that. That's somatic empathy. There's motor empathy, like if someone is mirroring facial expressions or body language, you're trying to understand the perspective of that other person by trying to feel what it would be like to be in their body. There's compassionate empathy. I mean, we could go I won't bore you with all of them. But the point is that what they all have in common is their ways to be able to take the perspective of the other person. And emotional empathy is only 1/43 of that.
And see, that makes sense to me. And I was writing some of these down while you were talking. Cognitive, we've kind of talked about that. Self empathy, I'm going to ask you about that in just a moment. Motor empathy, is that like, what do you call those when you're looking at people and there's those little tiny, tiny expressions, micro expressions? I pick those up very easily. And I
Mhm.
can almost always tell when I've put my foot in it just by watching a micro expression.
Yeah. No, motor empathy is more like when I think, this is something they kind of teach in sales where you'll mirror somebody's
Mm,
stance or your mirror facial expressions but what you're talking about is a kind of empathy because you're taking their perspective and picking up on those cues.
I think that's important. And I'm very rarely around people, but when I am, I'm looking at them, I'm talking to them, I'm listening to them, and I'm watching their expressions.
Mhm.
And they may be tiny, but if they show up, you better pay attention.
Yes, absolutely. And that is empathy. So your friend was right.
Oh, I'm gonna make her listen to this. Her name is Maggie, by the way.
Maggie, you were right.
There you go. I mean, I remember just we were driving to Atlanta. That's a 10-hour drive no matter where you start from. You could be in Atlanta and get stuck on Peachtree. You're still in it for 10 hours.
Yeah.
But why she a and I still don't know why she asked me. We were listening to, all kinds of we were listening to Wayne Dyer, we were listening to a lot of mindfulness, and she asked me that, and literally, was trying to write some of it down, and I said, "Pull over," because I get car sick very easily.
Yeah.
And, we had a long discussion about it. We had, got some lunch, and I went, "Huh." And that has stuck with me all these years. Something else that has stuck with me was from my very first business coach, and she asked me one time very quietly, "Denise, what are you tolerating?" So Maggie asking me that and my coach asking me what I was tolerated were big, big points for me. I come back to those a lot.
Yeah. I mean, because those are big life-changing things when you
They
can
were. Yeah,
answer
they
those
really were.
questions. Yeah.
And questions I would have never thought to ask myself, which is why I'm so glad you're here because we may be empathetic in so many different ways and don't recognize but one or two of them.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting too how we do show it differently. There's a lot of studies going on right now between empathy and people who are neurodiverse. 'Cause there's been this ongoing debate specifically, around autism, whether, people that are autistic, if they have empathy. And what these are finding is, yeah, they absolutely do. They just don't display it exactly the same, which makes perfect sense to me because with all these different kinds of empathy, you it's not always going to be the over the top, emotionally effusive kind. And it's something that most of us, to a certain degree, are born with. There is a biological component. So, it makes perfect sense when you kinda think about it, you know?
And when you discover it, as I did later in life, I was just like, "Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm empathetic at all. In fact, I'm not very nice most days." So I was I was spending a lot of time beating up on myself unnecessarily, as it turns out. But, that early conditioning
Yeah,
sticks with us.
it does. It does, and as you know from our last show, I'm not a huge fan of nice anyway.
No, me
I had to laugh.
I'd try well, no, and let's go back to that. Nice is different from what now? Let's go back.
Kind.
Yeah,
Nice and kind are 2 completely different
they
things.
are. Let's cover that because I thought that was one of the biggest things that we talked about, last December.
Yeah. No, I'd be happy to. So nice is a social construct. If you think about it, it's kind of the lubrication that greases society so that people are comfortable, so that things are easy, there isn't a lot of conflict. It's kinda like, manners in that it kind of makes things smoother, but it's not real, it's not sincere, you know? A lot of times, there's actually a fear component to it. You're nice because you don't wanna be in a conflict. You're nice because you don't wanna hurt someone's feelings, that sort of thing. Kind is when you actually care about the outcomes for that person. You wanna see them do better. You wanna see them go farther. You wanna and same about kindness to yourself, you know? Sometimes the nice thing to do would be to order a pizza and go lay in bed and watch Netflix, but sometimes that's not the kind thing to do for yourself because you know that that's not actually gonna help you in the long run. Nice is very surface. Kind goes a lot deeper. Empathy is always kind. It's not always very nice.
Right, and I get what you say about nice really does equate with manners. I mean,
Yeah.
it really does. I'm in the South, and no matter where I go, if I'm in a Walmart parking lot, somebody's gonna say, "Hey, how are you doing?" I've never seen them before in my life. "I'm well, how are you?" And we have this little conversations, and we grab our buggies, and we go our opposite directions, but that's just me being polite.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and when we ask you in the Deep South, "How are you doing?" We don't care. We really don't. We're just being polite and a little bit friendly.
Right.
We don't wanna hear how you're really doing. We don't. We just
Right.
wanna go, "I'm well, thank you. How are you?" "Okay, bye." That's the
Yeah.
end of it.
And I mean, it does smooth things over. I'm not gonna
It
say that
does.
it isn't useful, but I am gonna say it's no stand-in for kindness.
Exactly, and I get that. So kindness, and let's go back to empathy, means you need to take the time. You have to listen, you have to watch, you have to observe, it does take time, and then if you have a solution, you have to offer it.
Right. And even if you know it's going to cause conflict or it's going to upset someone or again, you're looking at their perspective. You're looking at their outcomes. What are the outcomes that they want? What are the things that they are striving for? What are the things that they find important? And actually trying to help this person be bigger and better than they would have been otherwise. Employee evaluations
Right.
are a huge example of this because I've seen so many people that are like, "Oh, just, 5 stars across the board. Everybody's great. We're all doing wonderful." And that's very nice. Nobody
It's
gets
not helpful.
upset.
Yeah.
No, you're taking away their opportunity to grow and do better. Don't take that away from them.
So basically, you're having to work backwards.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, keep going.
Yep, that's absolutely right. You're reverse engineering because you're figuring out what is it that drives this person, and then, well, how can I help them so that our outcomes align? help me, help you, help me, help you. Everybody wins.
Wasn't that a movie of
Maybe.
some kind? It seems like that was a line in a movie. I don't know. I don't watch movies, but that one sticks for some reason. I think it was I don't know what it was. I don't know who it was. Um, Empathy, and we're talking a lot about empathy. So why do you believe that empathy is becoming more important, not less important, in organizations and society overall? We've touched on that a bit, but can you expand on what you think?
Yeah, because we're dealing with so many things and systems that don't have empathy.
There
AI
you go.
does
Yeah.
not have empathy. Social media offers anonymity, so people think they don't have to have empathy. Everybody's talking and nobody's listening, which goes contrary to having empathy. So we're actually caught in these social systems, society systems, government, day to day stuff, social media, TV, all of it. There's no empathy there. So we're not learning it and we're not using it, which means we have to actually mean to use it. It has to be something that we actually put in the forefront of our mind and say, yeah, I'm purposely going to use this. I could go on social media and be trolly and nasty, but I'm going to choose not to because, there may be more here underneath the surface than I know.
Well, there always is.
Yes.
There's always more under the surface. And I will tell anybody who's listening, if you don't want your grandmother seeing it, don't put it on a billboard, which is social media.
Right.
If you're not going to say something in person, don't say it in social media. Just don't.
Right.
Keep your key take your hands off the keyboard. Walk
Right.
outside, kick a tire if you have to, but don't do it. Because let me tell you, the internet's forever.
Right. Yes, it is. Don't
So,
put a temporary fix on them.
no, no. And honestly, I just don't fight with people online. I just block them.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not coming kinda like the news. I closed off the news, 10, 12 a long time ago, decades ago. I don't watch it. It's not allowed in my living room. And I feel the same way about people who are just going to show up nasty or irritable online. You're not invited.
Yeah.
You gotta go now. Bye.
Yeah.
And I don't
Well,
say anything. I don't, cause a fight. I just disappear. They can't reach me anymore.
right. Me too, Denise. And I get it too. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're going to be trolly and nasty about empathy? Do you kick puppies in your spare time? What the
Right.
heck? I mean, if you want to be trolly, I guess that's on you, but I don't need it and it's got nothing to do with empathy. In fact, you're proving my point. So maybe I should just let them all
Yes,
on.
exactly. And it does tell people who are watching or listening exactly who you are.
Yeah.
And you're going to find yourself at some level isolated and probably rightfully so.
Yes. Yes.
But we don't want to live like that, do we? I mean, we don't want people to dislike us or, you know, talk ugly about us or just get nasty. I don't get the whole get nasty thing. I
No,
just don't.
I
And
don't.
it's not that that I'm a kind, soft person. I'm probably not. But I just don't get it. Why do people feel the need to just get online and break keyboards? I don't understand it. I think that's a sickness.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm with you. I just shut it down because I figure whatever energy I'm spending on that is energy I could be spending putting out into the world some good stuff that someone might hear when they need it. So why waste
Exactly.
time on them?
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, let's go back to how you teach people because I know you're working with a lot of people
Mhm.
who have big questions. So what are some of the questions that you hear when you're first starting with somebody who wants to know more about what you do or more about the book? Are there, 2 or 3 questions that you hear almost straight out of the chute that just have you going, "Huh,
Yeah. Well, the biggest one is just always, okay, give me something quick I can put in place right now. What can
ow."
I do today? You know?
Yeah.
And that's where I pull in the name their outcome. What is it that they want? What are the drivers they're working towards? Because if you can do this and make it a habit, I mean, I'm talking about it on a person to person level. But have you ever just looked at some of these people online or that are in the news or this kind of thing and thought, well, what is their outcome? What is it that they're going for? What are their drivers? You kind of start to see them in a new light. And it kind of becomes a game in some ways because it's like, well, huh. I've seen thus and so in the news 800 times in the last year. What is his outcome? What is it that he wants? What is it that's driving him? I wonder what's below the surface that I don't know about. So, actually teaching my people this idea of name their outcome and then aligning goals after that is a big one. The other one I talk about that we touched on briefly is this idea of self-empathy, because most people have never heard of it. They're like, "Oh, what's that?" And the thing is I'll work with these leaders and they're in these spots, and a lot of times they've gotten there because they pull in the most money, they have the biggest clients, they get the biggest contracts, but they've never been taught to be a leader, which organizations fail them in that way. But because of that, they get into these positions and they feel like an imposter. They feel like they shouldn't be there. They're dealing with all of this, self-deprecating stuff. And their home life suffers. They end up with addictions. They burn out at a really high rates, like 35%, I think. So this idea of actually being able to understand yourself and really understand your own drivers, not the surface drivers, but what's really going on under the surface. You'll have a leader and it's like, we're going to do this because we're going to get X gain share and for the glory and honor of the company. It's like, is that really your driver, or is your driver that you're scared of being found out, that you're not the best leader? What's your real driver? So we actually spend a lot of time on that, because if you can't show empathy for yourself, you're never going to be able to show it for anybody else.
So do you help them flip that instead of them saying, "I don't know what I'm doing. I hope they don't catch me at it," to flip it to, "I'm going to learn how to be the best leader I can be."
Yes, absolutely.
That would be self-empathy. It's like
Yes,
now you're curious. Now you're wanting to know more about you, how you show up, what you bring to the world, what your legacy is going to be. There's so many questions, but if you don't ask them, you're just gonna keep showing up and taking a lot of Tums.
right. Exactly, and they end up hurting themselves, and
Exactly, I've seen it
that's
happen.
yeah, that human capital is valuable. I don't wanna lose that.
No, so self I want to go deeper into self-empathy because for the longest kinda time, I I think I was aware of it, but I wasn't self-aware enough to understand what it was or take advantage of it and teach myself. When I finally caught on, I was like, "Huh, I kinda like me now." You know, it's isn't that pathetic? It's like, "Denise, you're not as bad as you thought you." And this is kind of a joke, but for the longest kind of time, my aunts always call me that damn Denise, I don't know why. I was I was the quiet one, but if they made the mistake of asking me a question, I answered it, I could clear rooms, it's like because I was quiet and I heard everything. I heard everything. And my
Yeah.
aunts would call me "Damn Denise," and I told my mom later in life, I said, for the longest kind of time, I thought my middle name was Denise and that was my first name." And she said, "Oh, shut up." I said, "See? That's that's where I get my attitude from." But for the
Yes.
longest kind of time, self-empathy was not on my mind.
Yeah.
Self-awareness was barely on my mind. I had to grow up, and you mentioned it earlier, once you start to mature a little bit and you start observing, you're like, "Huh, what else am I missing?"
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned self-awareness specifically, because I teach self-empathy in 4 steps and self-awareness is the 3rd. So,
Really? What
yeah.
give us 1, 2, and 3 and
So
4.
yeah.
I'm
So
writing them
first
down.
so first step is self-observation. And that means that you're just stepping back and you're watching. You're not assigning judgment, you're not putting emotions on it. I tell my people that you need to be critical, not caring. So you're critical like a computer, you're looking at patterns, you're taking in data, but you're not caring. You're not, hitting yourself over the head with everything that you wish you had done, or you're not thinking that you're great because you did something else. You're just observing. That's it. Second step is self reflection. You turn the lens inward and you say, well, why did I do that? Well, what is it in me that every time I see Bob, I just want to throw a custard pie in his face? Why did I trip off in that
I
meeting?
think we know the same Bob.
There's always one, and he's always named Bob, isn't he?
Or Uncle Bob, and that's even worse.
Oh, man. Yeah, I have like 3 of those, I think. But it's that self-reflection piece, you know, being able to once you've observed, there's no feeling attached, right? So as you're reflecting, you should be able to look at this without a lot of feelings on top and say, "Okay, well, I really hate Bob because he reminds me of my brother-in-law. It isn't Bob that I want the custard pie at, it's my brother-in-law," or whatever, but there's usually layers that people don't necessarily realize. But self-reflection, you're turning the lens in. Step 3 is self-awareness, so now you're turning the lens out, and you're saying, "Okay, these are the things I've done. What is the effect that they've had on the world around me?" Because when I went in and screamed at everybody at the meeting, the effect was that now nobody will talk to me. I'm missing innovative ideas. I'm missing honest input. I'm missing the ability to actually work with my team cohesively, and that was my own fault for going in and tripping off like that. Step 4 is self-compassion. Meaning that doesn't mean you're just gonna automatically give yourself a pass, but you're gonna say, "Okay, I understand why this happened. I see what I was doing. I'm gonna be a better leader now. I'm gonna give myself the compassion to take this information and move forward. Maybe I need to apologize to my team. Maybe I even need to apologize to Bob. But either way, I'm gonna give myself that compassion, and now I'm gonna be able to have the empathy to really see what my own perspective is with all of the stuff taken off of it, it's laid bare, and I can move forward."
Now, are these things that you should take the time every morning to do every single one of them before you look, my mother sent me a birthday card one time that said, "Happy birthday, Denise. The devil," what did it say? The devil she opened her eyes and the devil said, "Oh, crap, she's awake." It's like, "Thanks, mom." But
I
you
don't know about your family, Denise. Wow.
snark is our middle language. It's our second language. But she's a funny woman. She's gone now, and I miss her. But to me, and once I started delving into who I was, what I was, who I want to become, because look, if you're awake and breathing, you still want to become something better than you were yesterday, right?
Yes.
So now I pretty much do before my feet hit the floor. I talk about self-observation, that's important. Self-reflection, I do a lot of that.
Mhm.
Self-awareness, a lot of that. Are there some tools or just a chart that we should write for ourselves to do these every morning before we hit that floor running?
So, the way I actually teach it, we start it's a 4-week kind of a program, and we do 1 per week so that people can get used to it, right? Because practice doesn't
Oh,
make
okay.
perfect, practice makes
No.
permanent.
And it'll wear you out too if you're like, "Oh, I have to do it again." You
Right.
know?
And I
Okay,
gotta
keep
do
going.
it all. What do I do with all of this? I don't know. You know? So week 1, it's just observation because being able to observe what you do without putting that emotional component on top of it is hard if you're not used to doing it, you know? Week 2, continue with the observation, add the self-reflection. Someone like you who's been doing it a lot, probably cake. Someone else who's never done it before, this is gonna take some practice. Week 3, we layer in the self-awareness, but now by week 3, the observation and reflection should be getting easier and quicker. So now we're just adding in the next layer. So that by the time we get done with all 4 weeks, it's something that you should be able to do even a couple times a day to be able to apply this to different situations, but you should be able to start doing it quicker because you're building those neural pathways in your brain to be able to just knock this out. Observe, reflect, aware, compassion. Boom, 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 you know?
I love that. And I talk to my subconscious a lot because that's where everything is stored. So
Yes.
I do all of these things, and I've gotten pretty good at it because I finally figured out I had to or perish. Somebody was gonna hit me with a truck if I didn't learn to shut my mouth. But, yeah, that's kind of a joke, I'm not entirely sure, but still. But but now, when I'm getting ready to go to sleep, I don't sleep a whole lot anyway, but when I know I'm actually going to fall asleep at maybe 1:30 in the morning, I will literally do my self-observation. I'm talking to myself out loud and reflect. I'm doing all of these things, awareness. What did I do today that I wasn't real happy about? What did I learn from it? That kind of thing. And then I will literally say to my ceiling fan, I'm talking out loud because who knows who's listening to us? Might be the spiders in the fan.
Yeah.
But I'm saying my prayers. And then I will tell my subconscious, I'm giving this to you for review because something among those three self observation, self reflection, self awareness, self compassion probably bothered me. or I've got a piece of code that is just driving me nuts and I can't figure it out, or both. And I will literally turn it over to my subconscious for review. And at 3:18, I wake up and there's the answer without fail.
Yes. Isn't it funny how that your subconscious will work for you if you let it?
Oh, yeah, but you have
Yeah.
to be aware that it's sitting there, it's observing, and let's go back to observation. Every single thought you had, every single thing that you did, it's in there.
Yeah.
So, you might as well drag it back out and say, "Huh, that worked well, that didn't.
Yeah. Well,
I'll
and you
do
might as well
better, I'll do
yeah.
better."
Might as well put your arm around it and make it a friend rather than trying to stick it in a box.
Oh, it's a tool for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, let's go a slightly different tack, Melissa. What are some of the warning signs that someone really genuinely lacks empathy, and why is it so important that we learn to recognize those behaviors really early on?
One of the big things I find is that they're confused. They're like,
Oh,
"I don't understand why this happened. I don't understand why they're reacting this way. I'm trying to give them the best that I have." See, they're seeing it through their eyes, not the other person's eyes. I don't they're ungrateful, they're lazy, they're not doing things. So, the other person always ends up being the villain, and you're confused about why they don't see what you're trying to do. So, that confusion about the way other people are acting is huge, and it's a huge sign that you're obviously not understanding something. Take the time, take their perspective. Suddenly it might make sense. For example, just got done working with a client on a big change initiative, multi-billion dollar kind of thing where they're trying to bring in this new platform. And their employees kept pushing back against it, kept pushing back, kept pushing back. And this person was like, I don't understand. I don't understand why they don't want it. I'm trying to give them this cool whiz bang solution. What's the problem? And I was like, did you ask them? The whole organization was dealing with horrible change fatigue because they had been pushing these technological and AI solutions one after another, after another, after another, and these people just couldn't keep up. They didn't
and they
want them.
probably didn't understand it at all, why it
No,
was being done.
exactly. But because this person in leadership wasn't the one who had to learn it and use it, they didn't understand what the problem was, and they were confused. They thought they were legitimately trying to do something great, whereas everybody else was like, "No, we can't handle another one of these." You know? So, that
So,
confusion is a big sign.
that makes sense. So what happened? Did it get solved?
No,
Oh,
well, yes and no. I mean, change initiatives can be really big and very hairy, as you know, especially now with AI, because people are trying to put a lot of these in place. What this organization understood is that this was just not the time to be able to shove yet another change initiative in place. So they're kind of backing off on it just a little bit for now. And then we're gonna go back and actually approach it the right way by bringing people in on this, by getting people engaged, by giving people a reason to want to learn it, as opposed to just kind of, shoving it down everybody's throat and saying, "Here you go."
and once people understand that, then their creativity is going to kick in and they're going to have suggestions
Right.
or solutions. But if they're just saying, "Oh god, no, not again," they've already shut down and you're not going to get anything from them.
Exactly. They're not invested. And why should
Right.
they be? They haven't been invited to be invested.
That's exactly right. One last question, I think. I could be lying to you, but one one la or mistaken, let's say mistaken. How closely connected are empathy and EI, emotional intelligence? Because I think that the 2, if they're going hand in hand, you've got some brilliant people hanging around you.
Yes, like peanut butter and chocolate. Absolutely. Or whatever your peas and carrots, whatever you prefer.
I hate chocolate.
Well, there you go. Well, whatever you like.
Yeah,
Gym socks and tennis shoes. I don't know.
yeah, something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm one of those really strange people. I don't eat sugar and I hate chocolate. But I
I would
I am a girl, I am.
well, that's probably smart, actually.
I
But
just
you
don't
get what
like
I'm
it.
saying.
Yeah, I do, I do. But let's talk about, when they're connected and when they're working beautifully together, people become almost unstoppable.
Yes. For a long time, empathy was actually lumped in with other emotional intelligence skills. And this goes back to the Daniel Goleman's book in '95 because he had, 5 different arenas of emotional intelligence and empathy was one. I actually think you have to have empathy first. because if you don't take the perspective of the other person to understand what they want, you don't understand the best way to employ those emotional intelligence skills. Because if you think of emotional intelligence as like a huge tool bag, right? And you've got hammers and saws and chisels and screwdrivers and whatever in there, you know, you need to have empathy to take the perspective of that person to know what emotional intelligence skill to grab. Otherwise, when you reach in that bag, you don't know if you want a chisel or a left-handed screwdriver.
Or a battery. Most of them
Yeah,
need batteries these days.
yeah.
And I think this is a huge skill that seems to be lacking in a lot of places is the ability to shut up and listen,
Yeah. Yes, it
which I
is.
haven't been doing much of today, and I know that, but so see, I'm aware. See? I'm self-aware.
Well, you're on step 3 then, you're doing good.
But but I do find that people, they're just so busy. We hear this all the time. They're so busy listening to you so they can
Mhm.
jump in with their next thought. They're not really listening to you.
Right.
They're hearing you. They're not really listening. Big difference there.
Yeah. Well, right there, they're taking their own perspective. "What have I got to say?
Right.
What have I got to say?" They're not taking your perspective of trying to explain whatever it is. So right there, that's where you need to take the other person's perspective and leave yours behind. You already know your perspective. It'll be there when it comes back, when you come back.
Right. It's always there.
Yeah.
So can someone really develop one without the other? I'm going to guess no.
Empathy and emotional intelligence, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, sort of. So a lot of people who have empathy think of it as something you have, right? It's like it's something you own. The thing is it doesn't really work unless it's something you use actionably and strategically. If you just have empathy and, you hoard it like Scrooge McDuck and gold, then yeah, you're not really going to tap into emotional intelligence because it's just something you have. If empathy is something you use, now you can really supercharge those emotional intelligence skills.
Right. Melissa, if someone's listening today, and I hope they go back and listen to our first conversation, and realizing that they may not have thought deeply about empathy in their leadership before. And when I say leadership, I'm talking you can be a housewife, you can be a veterinarian, you can be me.
Yeah.
I have a team, they're all remote, but I have a team. We're all leaders,
Yeah.
every one of us, and we're all salespeople too, by the way. You ever try to talk a 3-year-old out of something? It's not going to happen. They're going to sell
Mhm.
you. So just get used to the idea of that leadership and salespeople, and we all have to have empathy and we have to, not get overwhelmed. But I'm guessing I'm asking you to kind of go back to week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, because I was going to ask where you suggest they start without feeling overwhelmed, but you kind of shared that with us already.
Yeah. I mean, I think the best thing to do is to put these skills in place one at a time. Take one, get good at it, and then layer in the next one. Because if you get overwhelmed, then you rage quit. So that's no good. Better to do it slowly and to really integrate it because practice really doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent because you can ingrain bad habits just as easily as you can ingrain good ones. So
Oh,
take your
yeah.
time, start with one. When you feel good about that, layer in the next. When you feel good about that, layer in the next.
Practice makes permanent. I'm writing that down. Listen, where can our audience connect with you and read your book? And listen, everybody, get the book.
Yes, please. And actually, since we talked, I have the audiobook or the Audible version out now too.
Oh,
So
good. I'm going to go
it,
grab it. I have a credit as of this morning.
excellent. So if you'd prefer to listen rather than read, you can do that too, and you're stuck with my voice for a little bit longer, I guess, but that's all right.
It's a terrific book, and I highly, highly recommend it.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a lot that went into that. So anyway, yes, you can get that at Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and the usuals. You can go to my website. My TEDx talk is also linked up there along with some of my other talks, my newsletter. You can sign up for my newsletter. My blog is there, and that's EQ Via, and that's V as in Victor, IA Empathy. And then I'm up on LinkedIn, and I do have a podcast called The Empathic Leader, so you can find me there as well.
Great. Well, Melissa, thank you for being here again and putting up with my constant interruptions. I'm always like, "Oh, I have to say something." Yeah. And I try not to do that, but you and I we talk a lot. So, we talk across each other, but thank you for putting up with that. And I think it was another amazing conversation. So thank you for such a thoughtful conversation around empathy, emotional intelligence, and what it means to really lead well at home or out and about. And this is one of those topics that doesn't just stay in the workplace. It follows us into how we show up with people everywhere, even online, even on Zoom calls, everywhere. Be aware of who you are and how you're showing up. So everybody, thank you. We really appreciate you being here with us today. And I hope you'll go find her on LinkedIn, and her website, as she just said, eqviaempathy.com. And I'm Denise Griffitts, and thank you for listening. And I will see you each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Melissa, thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a fantastic conversation, and as always, I had so much fun.
And see, this is why I wind up chatting so much, because you're so fun to talk to and with. So thank you.
Well, both ways.
Thank you. Everybody, have a great weekend. It's a long weekend, and be safe out there.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.